They slammed him onto the hood. The handcuffs clicked shut, and Sergeant Warren smirked. "You've had your fun, knocker." They thought it was just another easy case, planted evidence, fabricated reports, a guaranteed conviction. But what they didn't know was the most important thing. Their victim was an undercover FBI agent. A dark street, dead of night. Ben Carter stepped out of a small diner in the south side of the city. He wore a simple hoodie, jeans, and worn-out sneakers. Nothing about him suggested that he was an experienced undercover FBI agent. He took a few steps toward his car when he noticed the familiar flash of patrol lights. "Hey, boy!" A rough voice made him stop. Two white officers, Sergeant Randall Warren and his partner, Douglas Kane, had already stepped out of their vehicle. "Is there a problem, officers?" Ben asked evenly, though inside he knew this was it. It was beginning. "Got a report about a suspicious guy. You match the description." Warren sneered, stepping closer. Kane was already circling Ben's car, inspecting it. "Let's check your ride." No permission, no warrant. Ben silently watched as Kane climbed inside. This was part of their routine. Plant the drugs, falsify the report, lock up a black man, then collect a bonus for taking down a drug dealer. Well, what do we have here?" Kane laughed, pulling a small bag of white powder from the glove compartment. "Looks like you forgot to clean up, buddy." Ben clenched his jaw. He had expected this, but seeing it unfold firsthand was something else entirely. "Turn around, hands on your head." Warren yanked him by the shoulder and slammed him onto the hood. Ben felt the cold metal against his cheek as the handcuffs locked around his wrists. "Would you look at that?" Kane mocked. "Another idiot who thought he could deal around here." Ben remained silent. Everything was going according to plan. He could feel the hidden camera sewn into his hoodie, recording everything. "You're making a big mistake, officers," he said calmly as they shoved him toward the squad car. "Oh, don't start," Warren scoffed. "You're not the first to say that on the way to prison." But he would definitely be the last one they framed. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, activists, and concerned citizens crowded the gallery, watching the case unfold with anxious anticipation. Another black man caught with drugs. Just another familiar story. But no one knew the truth. Ben Carter sat at the defendant's table, hands clasped together, his expression calm. He had been waiting for this moment. The prosecution asserts that the defendant was found in possession of illegal substances in his vehicle. Prosecutor Michael Hudson spoke with confidence. To him, this was just another routine case. Defense? Judge James Copeland raised an eyebrow, glancing at Ben. Rachel Thompson, his defense attorney, stood, young, ambitious, and unafraid to challenge the system. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss this case immediately, as the evidence was fabricated and the arrest was unlawful." Her voice was firm, unwavering. "That's a serious accusation, Miss Thompson." The judge sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Do you have proof?" Rachel glanced at Ben. It was time for the final blow. "I can testify, Your Honor." Ben suddenly spoke, rising to his feet. The courtroom fell silent. "You mean you can confirm your own innocence?" The prosecutor frowned skeptically. "I mean that I am an undercover FBI agent." Chaos erupted in the courtroom. The prosecutor went pale. The judge froze. Journalists scrambled to take notes. Warren and Kane, seated in the front row, exchanged stunned glances before abruptly jumping to their feet. "This is a lie. He's a drug dealer," Kane shouted. But the courtroom doors were already opening. Two men in suits stepped inside, flashing their FBI badges. "We are here to present evidence of corruption within the police department," one of them announced loudly. This was not the ending Warren and Kane had planned. Chaos consumed the courtroom. The judge slammed his gavel multiple times, demanding order, but emotions ran high. "This is some kind of mistake." Prosecutor Hudson turned red, glaring at the FBI agents. Ben Carter, never taking his eyes off Officers Warren and Kane, reached into his pocket, pulled out a small USB drive, and handed it to his attorney. "This flash drive contains footage from my body cam," he said calmly. "Every word, every move, every lie they told, it's all recorded." "You... What the hell kind of circus is this?" Warren roared, his face turning crimson as he realized he had walked straight into a trap. The FBI agents seated themselves in the front row. One of them, a man in a dark blue suit, stood and addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, Sergeant Randall Warren and Officer Douglas Kane are under investigation for planting evidence, falsifying reports, and illegal arrests. Their precinct has been on our radar for some time. Today, we have undeniable proof." A shocked murmur rippled through the courtroom. "This is a lie! A setup!" Kane jumped to his feet, his voice trembling with panic. "Sit down, Officer Kane," Judge Copeland barked. Meanwhile, the courtroom monitor flickered to life, playing footage from Ben's hidden camera. The video clearly showed Kane smoothly pulling a small bag of drugs from his own pocket and discreetly planting it in Ben's glove compartment. "Impressive sleight of hand," Rachel Thompson quipped, pausing the footage. "I believe, Your Honor, that there is no longer any doubt about who the real criminals are." The judge scowled and turned to the officers. "Sergeant Warren, Officer Kane, stand up." The two officers rose, but their faces were drained of color. "You are under arrest for misconduct, perjury, and unlawful arrests." The moment the judge spoke those words, two internal affairs officers burst into the courtroom. "Hands on your head! Don't move!" The entire city would see this footage on the news. The cops who thought they were untouchable were now criminals themselves. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Internal affairs officers swiftly restrained Warren and Kane, snapping handcuffs onto their wrists. The audience shot to their feet, some in shock, others cheering. "You can't do this," Kane roared, struggling against the agents. "We're cops." "No," one of the agents replied coldly. "You're criminals, and you will pay for what you've done." Randall Warren, still trying to maintain control, turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this is a setup, a sham. We are the law." Judge James Copeland sighed, removed his glasses, and swept his gaze across the room before speaking dryly. "The law is not you, Sergeant. The law is the truth, and today the truth is not on your side." Then he turned to Ben. "Mr. Carter, on behalf of this court, I apologize for what you've had to endure. All charges against you are dropped." A wave of murmurs swept through the courtroom. Applause erupted. Some in the audience shouted, "Justice has prevailed," while others recorded the moment on their phones. Journalists rushed toward the exits, eager to break the story. Rachel Thompson turned to Ben, her eyes shining with excitement. "You did it." "We did it," Ben corrected her. But deep down, he knew this victory was just the beginning. 2 days later. The entire city was buzzing. The story had spread nationwide. FBI agent exposes corrupt cops in courtroom showdown. Planted evidence scandal, police department under fire. Racist system crumbling. Public demands reform. Protests erupted across the city. People marched with signs demanding justice for those wrongfully imprisoned by cops like Warren and Kane. Under mounting pressure, the city's police chief resigned, and several officers submitted their resignations. Some protesters chanted Ben Carter's name, turning him into a symbol of the fight against police corruption. But Ben remained in the shadows. He sat in the same cafe where it had all begun. A cup of black coffee sat untouched in front of him as he stared out the window, watching the cars and pedestrians pass by, thinking his job wasn't finished. Rachel Thompson slid into the seat across from him, crossing her arms. "You're a celebrity now, Agent Carter," she teased. "That's not why I did it," he replied, finally lifting the cup and taking a slow sip. "So, what now?" She leaned in. Ben set the cup down, his expression turning steely. "Now, I keep doing what I've always done, which is hunting those who think they're above the law and making sure they fall from the heights of their power." Rachel smiled, but there was concern in her eyes. "You know they won't leave you alone after this, right? You have a lot of enemies now." Ben simply smirked. "I'm used to it." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The world wouldn't change on its own. People had to change it, and Ben Carter was one of those people.